Okay, good morning. So we are doing today Samach Aleph Amud Beis, and we are up to Samach Aleph Amud Aleph at the um, about 3 lines down from the 4 lines down from the widest lines. So Zot the Gemara. The Gemara says, "L'man de Omar Partzuf." Right. So remember, we had a machlokes on Friday. We discussed a machlokes about whether or not. Do you want to turn on the air conditioner? We have a machlokes between whether it was a partzuf or a zanav, right? Partzuf or a zanav, right? What was the machlokes? The machlokes was whether or not Adam was created, say partzufim, right? Where it was like sort of one side was male and one side was female. The other opinion was that it was a zanav, it was sort of an appendage, a rib, whatever, a tail, where there was a man. And then later Hashem made an operation to take this appendage and create the woman out of it. And we went through all the various different psukim to discuss both sides. So now we're going back on the side, and the Manamra holds that it was parts of, meaning we just finished discussing the Zanav side. Now we're going back to the parts of side and saying, okay, according to Manamra holds that there was both a male and a female side. Which side went first? Lamanda Amar parts of Hey Minayu Sagi Beresha. Which one went first? When they were walking, which one went first? Says the Gemara. Makes sense to say that the male side was walking in front. The Tanya, why? Because we have a brisa. The brisa says, a man should not be walking behind the woman on the road. Even his own wife. What happens if you're walking on a narrow bridge? And there's a woman who's ahead of you, so you shouldn't walk behind yourself. Kennel stud. You should try to walk on the side in order to get around her. And anybody who walks behind a woman by the river doesn't have a portion in Olam Haba. The rabbis taught anyone who is, in business, so they give change. Right, so you have to give money hand to hand. You notice if you've ever been in the Mesh Army, you see how they deal with this Gemara, right? A man and a woman never give money to one another because of this Gemara, right? They always put it down on the table and they take it from the table. When you have a lot of agorot, then it gets exciting. But fundamentally, they do not. They take this Gemara seriously and literally. So, if you're giving money from one to another, in order to be able to enjoy it. I feel even if you have tremendous amount of learning and ma'asim tovim like Moshe Rabbeinu, you're not going to be spared from the Medina of Gehenna. Right? So hand to hand, which we're darshaning, you won't be saved from the evil. Okay, now. Before we go any further, I want to go first through Rashi and Taisa. So let's look, for example, at Rashi. When you looked at the Gemara says, "Lo yahalach adam achari isha baderech afilu ishtay." You shouldn't be going behind a woman on the road. What do you think? What's the mashmayis when you would read the Gemara alone? Right? You would say a woman, any woman. You shouldn't be walking behind a woman. Yes, that would seem to be the simple reading. What does Rashi say? What does Rashi say? Where are we? Where are in Rashi? So him and Esak Beresh Ezu parts of Machlofon. Which one went first? I feel he ishtay Gnai Adav. It's the Gnai. Is Dam Nalei Gesher? What does Rashi say? Eish is ish. V'hi lefanav. What are we talking about? If you're on the bridge and you have a woman in front of you, we're talking about an Eish is a married woman. That wasn't the simple understanding of the Gemara, yeah. Then Rashi continues, it's like a son trying to get around her. You're not allowed to go behind a woman in the river. Who would you think you were talking about? Any woman. Says Rashi, ish. So the Pasha understands you would have thought it was from any woman. Rashi seemingly madgish, specifically talking about a married woman. Not getting more into that for now. Look at Taisus and how Taisus is madgish this Gemara. Says Tais, "Chol over achari isha banar in lechelek dalam habo pirish imragil bakach." Right? Tais is talking about regilas. Does the Gemara mention anything about regilas? No. The Gemara doesn't say anything about being normal to go behind women. No. That would be seemingly an addition of Taisus. The Taisus is saying that the issue is regilas. If it happens once in a blue moon, okay, this is what it is. You don't have to like change your whole thing. This is what it happened. But from the simple reading of the Gemara, these are both sort of watering down what the Gemara would simply say, um, that anytime something would happen like this, you have to avoid it. That seems to be saying if you have a regulus in it, why because if you have a regulus in this, you're going to end up in inappropriate things, and then bad result. So I thought I would share with you a classic shuvah from Moshe on the topic. This is in Even Ezer and Chilik Beis, Siman Yudal. Be'inyan halicha b'sabvei uvebas. Right, so you have a situation where you're traveling on a bus. Maybe nowadays it's not so popular to go on the bus or the subway anymore. I haven't been on the subway in many years, but or a bus and even more. But at least not in America. But I used to take the bus every day to school, right? And the subways. So you're allowed to do that. If it's a rush hour and the buses are packed or the trains are packed, and you're going to end up in a situation where you are getting halach acharisha when you're literally becoming too up close and personal. It says from Moshe, "Hine mitzana negiyot chipa b'noshim as blekashum iser mishum dein zederch type of a chiba." Not a problem because it's not being done derech type of a chiba. The cholas negiyot b'arayis, even according to the Rambam. The Rambam holds to love, and here we're getting in our parsha of the week. Like sikrivu legalis erva. Ani Hashem, this week's parsha, dafka derech type akim b'furish b'dvar. So Ramesh says not an issue because dafka derech type, and therefore Ramesh says no issues with doctors examining women, no problems. Ramesh includes the tshuva, we skip most of it, but Ramesh includes the tshuva and says that negiah without kavana, this is not an issue. However, Ramesh continues. Well, before the however, like one more point. This is now a thing. Whenever you fly, this is a thing. Yeah, there's no issue sitting next to a woman on a bus, train, or God forbid a plane, if there's no other place. Like if your ticket says this is your seat, you ask nicely if somebody else wants to switch, and they don't, so you don't make a thing about it. But why the gam can insert that type of a chiba? And what happens if it's your ishta nida? You're speaking leishav t'chukim yesh ulay lesser la beisesef maybe. Avo kevin sheva achrein mashma shalavar kashach. We're skipping over that machlokes from the beisesef and the shach. Gam beisesef and bar lesser the after shaf yeshiva smuchim ein lachish the kavanas. Ano lachen ein lesser. You don't go on a plane and say, "Oh, but my wife's a needle. We have to sit separately." Like it's not unheard of. In fact, it would be far more not some preachers to talk like that. But whenever I'm on a plane and I do see this happen, I always think to myself, the end of Ramesh's tshuva, because this is the end of Ramesh's tshuva, and he says as follows: "Aval im yedeh shehu yavel dehira." The person knows about himself that he is the kind of person who's going to come with a hira. Yesh l'noyim milachas azim ein nochatzlay. He shouldn't travel unless it's absolutely 100% urgent. Why is he going? Obviously, if he has problems, he shouldn't go. If he's not like he needs to prepare nothing, he can't survive. If he doesn't work, okay, so I can be matter in that situation. The Rambam, of course, he should be thinking about learning, he should be doing other things and be able to save himself. But if he knows that he has such a bad teva, he can't. It's not for him even to go to work. Right? Chazon person should be such a bad person like this. But like I said, I always think about this tshuva in the end when I see people making a really big deal about it. I think they must be going to the end of the Rambam, but they don't want to cancel the trip. So in order not to cancel the trip, they're really working hard to try to avoid the the uh, the problem. Okay. Sometimes the Chil Hashem becomes a problem too, but we're not getting into that now. All right, continue going. So the Gemara says as follows. Yeah. So Amar of Nachman. Amar of Nachman. Menoach Am Haaretz. Menoach was an Am Haaretz. What does Am Haaretz mean? So we've talked before about Am Haaretz. We talked about Am Haaretz on not doing the Rabbanans, Am Haaretz on Brachos. Right? We've mentioned Am Haaretz now many times here in Brachos. For our purposes now, Rashi says, what does it mean Am Haaretz? Is L'shimish Talmidei Chachamim. He did not service the Talmidei Chacham. Right? We talked before and remember on Zayin Rabbeis about Gadol Shimushi Yosim Limuda. Right? We talked about Elisha that he was washing the hands of Eliyahu, not that he was learning Eliyahu. So we say Manoach was an Amar. It's not that he wasn't learned, but he was an Amar because he didn't do Shimush, because he should have known that you don't go after your wife. It says Menach went after his wife. Practically more. Maskell of Nachman Yitzchak Me'ato. Rav Nachman Yitzchak asked, "What do you mean? How can you say Menach was an Amar because he went after his wife?" Gabi Elkanah, it says it says Elkanah went after his wife. It says, what are you talking about? It doesn't say that at all. There's no pasuk in Tanakh that says V'yelchal Kana Achari Ishtay. Shibushu says Teshim. Pasuk says B'chala Mikra. V'loy Garcini. Like there's no pasuk. Take it out of the Gemara. It's a mistake. Right. So the way I have it in my Gemara is El Me'ata Gabe. I put a parenthesis before Elkanah, and then after the word V'gabe, I put another parenthesis. So basically, where the Gemara should read is El Me'ata Gabe Elisha. Right. Now that is one way to learn. There's another way to learn, which is not like Taisus, which is that the Gemara did have, and the Gemara made a mistake about psukim. And we have other times in Shas where there are mistakes about psukim. I don't want to get into it now, but there are. Look at Shabbos and Beis over there where it talks about. Look at the Shas. There, a long list of psukim that the Gemara gets wrong. How could it happen? Well, there are various Tanaim and Amram who didn't know. You remember we had in Brachos, we met a character, person, whose name was Reb Chanina Kara. Why was he called Kara? Because he was an expert in the Bible. That was his thing. Look in Gemara's Chagigi Daled. There were people who were Baki in Chumash, Baki in Tanakh, Baki in Mishnah. But people had their ears of specialists. Not everyone was necessarily Baki in Tanakh, but it's their Daled, but Safra. They didn't know Tanakh so well. So we have things like that. So Tais goes all the way to say, the Gemara, I'm not sure you have to go that far. You could say, okay, this is an example where the Gemara had a misquote. But nevertheless, for our purposes now, we have to move on. So the Gemara asks, what is the question on this idea that says, that Menach is the Nam Haaretz, for the Gemara, what about by Elisha? You remember by the Shunamis. Right, what happened with the Shunamis? So Elisha helps her out, and then her son dies. So when her son passed away, so she went to go see him. Now, when she goes to see him, her husband, Rosh Hashanah Tzayin, tells us, "Why are you going?" Shabbos, meaning after we learned that you go meet your Rebbe on Shabbos Yontif on a happy occasion. So she says goodbye, and she keeps on going. And on the way, Elisha realizes that she's on the way. He doesn't understand. He says, Hashem hasn't come to me. Well, I don't know. I don't know why she's coming. Why is she here? And when she gets there, she tells him, you lied to me. Why? I told you I don't mean it. I have a kid now. He's dead. So Elisha sends the woman saying that Elisha is not saying that, he's giving her the son, and then the son's not here. It's not what she asked for. She was content, without having that. Now she has it, and it's not working out for her. So she's very, very upset. And if you look in the pasuk is very clear. The pasuk is when they go back to the house to go help the kid, he went after her. Didn't we just say that it's a situation of Amaratzis to do that? Now, you might say, well, this is a kind of tafashis. Going to her house, maybe it doesn't apply at that moment. That's not the way the Gemara is reading it. The Gemara is saying, no, you never go behind her. So, the fact that he went behind her, and that, obviously Elisha is not an Amaretz. He's not possible. So, what do you say? So, Nachman Yitzchak says, so Elisha, mamish. You can say he went after Mamish. Again, you might have said, well, yeah, it's like it's the first, so he's like following her to get to her house the quickest way. I mean, why not? No. Says the more, no, that's not how you should assume. Ela acharei devareh, v'acharei atzasa. Means he was following her words, meaning she had told him what his story was with her son. So she's now he's acting now in accordance with that, not going after in a literal sense. So to say by Menach, it wasn't going after. If you look at, we have this haftarah every year, Parshas Nasai. If you look at that haftarah, this year Parshas Nasai, you'll enjoy it. The Torah is clear, makes it 1,000% clear that this woman is far more impressive than her husband, right? Shimshon's parents. The father, who is given a name, the woman is not given a name. We can talk about that another time. Is much more impressive. And so the angel appears the first time to her, and the husband's like, I don't know, I'm not sure. Did he really appear? And the angel appears then a second time, again to the wife, not to the husband. And again, she runs to find the husband and say, the angel's here. And he says, yeah, do whatever the second time when the angel comes. First time he had told all the Hilchos and the Naziris that the Shemesh has to abide by. Second time he says no. Second time when the husband gets there, he says, whatever I told you, wife, that's what you should do. Right? It makes it super clear that, why bugging me? Come back again. So the way Rav Nachman Yisrael wants to learn is that doesn't mean that Noach went after his wife in a literal sense, but it meant he followed her because she had the information, he did not. And the same way that Elisha had the information, and the woman had the information, Elisha did not. Today's the Gemara. Amar Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi says, "Well, might become Rav Nachman, right? You can't get confused in the names. One is Rav Nachman, one is Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman disagrees. Rav Nachman says, no, Manoach was an Amaris because he went after his wife. Now, I would say, I wouldn't use the word Amaris, but I'll say Manoach was not on the level of his wife. That's clearly indicated in the Psukim. Rav Nachman is saying Manoach is an Amaris because he went after his wife in a literal sense. Rav Nachman basically has a taich. What's his taich? Because Elisha didn't do it, obviously. I mean, it's not so obvious to me. Again, it's like on his emotions, but that's the thing Mar says it. But for Rav Nachman, it meant literally. So for Rav Nachman, who means literally that Manoach is an Amaretz, the man's come Rav Nachman, Manoach Amaretz haya afilu be Rav Nami loikara. It's not that she was an Amaretz; they didn't do shimush of the Talmid Chacham. He was an Amaretz; they didn't even learn Chumash. Why? Because what does it say in Pasuk? Shnema talking Rivka v'Nahar seven to Kavna lagamalim v'teilach nachar ish. What if ish? Says Rivka went after the man, right? Went after the Eved Avram back to the land of Canaan, not with him, not together, not in front of him. No, she went after him. So you see, the man is supposed to go in front, and if you go to Korea, you'll see that it's really adhered to 100%, even to this day, right? And maybe even in certain places in China as well. Like the man walks a few paces ahead of the woman. It's a fascinating thing. I remember asking about it to Koreans years ago when I was a kid. I was wondering, you guys keep the Gemara. I know you like the Talmud. The Talmud is a big bestseller in Korea. South Korea, we're talking. But they didn't know from the Gemara. This is the culture. Okay. Says the Gemara. I don't know. It's a good question. I'll tell you this. It's better that your wife shouldn't feel bad and you should walk next to each other when you're going on a walk on Shabbos rather than like, you say to your wife, dear, would you like to go on a walk on Shabbos? Yes. Okay, I'm going to walk 3 steps ahead. You just walk behind me and that is not appropriate. Yes? Okay. Continues the Gemara. You should walk behind a line before you walk behind a woman. Right? Better to walk behind a woman, though, than to walk behind an Avodah Zarah. Better to walk behind a Avodah Zarah than to walk behind the Beis HaKnesses. And again, like the Mistachat Brachos wants us to do Chazar, so now we go back, remember our minds back to Chesed and Beis. But more of it told us, what is the issue with walking behind the Beis HaKnesses? Is it fundamentally an issue? No. But if you're walking behind the Beis HaKnesses, it might seem like you're a bit of a kafir. Why aren't you going into shul? Everybody's davening. Not if you're going behind the Beis HaKnesses at 3 a.m. No. If you're going behind the Beis HaKnesses during the time of the Tzibur is davening, and you're not going in, we're not talking about a situation, as the Gemara is going to say, it's a shtibel city with tons of shuls. No. We're talking about a situation where there's one synagogue in town, and you're not going in, and everybody else is davening. So then it seems like you're a bit of a kafir. So, Amar, when did we say they're not allowed to go behind the shul when the tzibur, when the tzibur is down? When is that? Is Amar and elderly dar midi? That's only if you're not carrying anything. But if you dar midi less than, but if you're carrying a big masoi, then we know why you're not going to shuls because you got to put down this masoi. You got to put it where it belongs. Amar and elderly and there's also no issue even if you're not carrying a masoi, right? But if there's a few entrances to the shul, you walk by this entrance, not a problem because everybody's going to assume he's going to the other entrance. Less lamba. Right, but if there's another door, it's not a problem. But it's also no problem if you're riding a donkey, right? If you're in your car, it's not a problem if you go by the shul. Why? Because right? Obviously, you have a. What are you going to do with your donkey? Bring him into shul? No, obviously, it's not going to be considered then a situation where you're being a kafir. It's also a situation where if a person's wearing tefillin, it's not going to be a problem. Not going to be considered a kafir. Why? Because everyone knows you're wearing tefillin. Right? You're wearing tefillin all day. Mistama in a situation like if you're wearing tefillin outside of shul, you're the kind of person that wears tefillin all day. So obviously, if you're not going to shul now when everybody else is in shul, there's a reason why you're not going to shul. What the reason is, I don't know. But whatever it is, it's sufficient enough to know that you're not giving the shul you're not giving God or the religion a bad name, and therefore it wouldn't be any issue. Okay, continues the Gemara. Amar Rav, Yetzer Hara daimel lezvuf. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is like a fly. It's open, it's like residing between the two openings of the heart. Right, the flies of death, they're very putrid, and they are making the perfumes all bad. The Shmuel Amar Kimenchito, Shmuel says that the Yetzer Hara is like a kernel of wheat. Shenem la Pesach Chatzas Revet, right? Because the passage in the very beginning of Bereshis tells us that sin crouches at the door, and Chatas sounds like Chita. What is the point of these two Gemaras, these little adages? So Rabbeinu Chananel writes, if you look at Rabbeinu Chananel, Shenuya Ba'alma, it's just whatever, a limud. Kulaymar Yetzahara Davar Kalu. It's to tell you that Yetzahara is it's not such a big deal. I'm a vakish like a place if somebody wants to beat it, he's able to beat it. It's like a fly. I mean, a 7 in 1 blow, right? The guy killed 7 flies, right? In one shot. So it was a big deal, right? You can catch a fly. Flies, they don't fly so fast. You can get a fly. It's not such a big deal. I always think of this Gemara in the context of the Gemara in Sukkah on base. The Gemara says that the lost of love, HaKadosh Baruch is going to shech the Yetzer Hara in front of the Tzaddikim and the Rishayim. And the Gemara says that both the Halal B'Eichem, everybody's going to be crying. They are crying fast. And what's the reason that they're all going to be crying? So they're going to be crying and they're going to be saying, wow, this massive mountain, this Yetzer Hara is definitely like Mount Everest. We were able to climb it. And the Sham are going to be crying and saying, this Yetzer Hara, which is Nimshalahem Ichuta Saira. We weren't able to conquer this. That's why I think of this Gemara, that comparing the Yetzer Hara to something very, very small, is the Rishonim are going to see that vision, Las and Lavai, that why couldn't you be able to do better? It wasn't such a big deal. Okay. Here's the Gemara. A person has 2 kidneys. It gives advice. We're going to see it in a second. Additionally, on this point, the Mustafa, the Teva, Limina, Vero, the smell, it makes sense to say that the Teva is on the right side. Generally, we are prejudiced against the left. Right, the left is din, the right is chesed, the right is good, the left is hard. So the Teva, Lev Chacham, Limina, Lev Silis, Mailai. Fine. So here's the Gemara. Whether or not this Gemara should be taken as a science, as I mentioned before, we're not getting into this. So many Gemaras here in the 9th parak. We could talk about whether or not the science agrees with it and how to deal with these Gemaras. For now, we're going to have to suffice with that. So says the Gemara, Tanarabban, Kloyas Yaetzes, right? The kidneys give advice. Leiv Maven, the heart understands. We don't talk in this Gemara about the brain. Yeah, Kloyas Yaetzes, Leiv Maven, Loshem Mechatech, right? The tongue helps you take out the words, right? When you want to say something, so it helps do a chita, like cutting up the words into words. Peg Gomer, the lips finish it off. Veshed Machnas and Leitzikol, meaning Ma'achal, right? The esophagus takes in and out various food. Kana Leitzikol, right? The trachea produces the voice. We're turning now the page on Samachalaf on the base. Raya She'eves Komini Mashkin, right? The lungs take in various liquids. I don't really know what that means. in terms of modern science today. But Rashi says that Al B'Shein Echnasim Mikaras Echad Derech HaVeshet, even though it comes in Derech HaVeshet, the lungs take it out and they move it around. I'm not sure. Maybe we're talking about blood, in that sense, that the blood's being pumped. Maybe some ear that's, that would be the heart more than the lungs, whatever. Okay, not sure. Anyhow, continues the Gemara. Kaved koyes, the liver gets angry. I'm not really sure literally what that means. Mara zorekes boitipo manichasai, and the gallbladder is able to, Rashi says, sort of put in a drop and calm it down. Chayil is the spleen. We've had that before. Sheichik, seichik, I'm sorry, it laughs, causes laughter. Korkovan, which is, as Rashi points out, Korkovan is a bird, right? It's like the maw, right? It holds the thing, the food, like you see a pelican or whatever. But in a human, it's the mases by a behema, and that's what we call the maw in English. So that grinds up the food. Keva, the keva is the stomach. It's by a bird. It's not relevant for now. Keva is the stomach. That causes sleep, it sounds like. Keva yashena, that causes sleep. Af, the nose, ne'er, that causes awaking. Ne'er hayashan, or yashan aner, if it goes backwards. In other words, if it goes reverse. Instead of the nose causing a person to wake up, but the nose causes somebody to sleep. Or the keva, instead of causing a person to sleep, causes a person to wake. I think my wife has told me, like, science has, said many times that when a person eats, they get tired, right? So maybe that's what the Gemara sort of referring to. I'm not sure. But if it's reversed, if a person's waking up because of their stomach and going to sleep because of their nose, so then like Rashi says, it's going to cause a person to come to death. It's not an ideal situation, obviously. And then the Gemara continues and says, Tanim, Shneim Yishenim, Shneim Neurim, if both of them are causing a person to sleep, or both of them are causing a person to awake, then miyad meis, then your mom is going to die. The way I look at this is like, if everything's causing you to sleep, right, then you're not going to be awake in this world. You're not going to be able to be, doing a good job. And if everything's causing you to be awake, and your mom can't sleep, so you end up with what the people call they can't sleep at all, insomniacs. So a person gets to become a true insomniac. Mamish doesn't sleep. But I think there's a more that says a person doesn't sleep for like a few 3 days or something. Like eventually you die. Right? You can't. A person cannot exist without sleeping. Okay, so now we are sort of done with this bit of science, and we move on. Says the Gemara. Tanya of Yeseg Lili Omer. Tzadikim Yetzer Tov Shoftan. Rabbi basically says that tzaddikim, the Yetzer Torah is shoftan. What does that mean? So I'll tell you the way I understand it, which is not necessarily the way that the Rishonim understood it, which is that the Yetzer Tov is what is sort of adjudicating for them. It's what's helping them out on the Yom Hadin. Rishonim Yetzer Ra shoftan. By the Rishonim, the Yetzer Hara is the thing that's bringing the evidence against them. By Beinanim somebody who's in between. We're talking here about the Beinanim, not the sense of Beinanim in certain Hasidic Svarim, but the Beinanim in the sense of the way the Gemara Rosh Hashanah on Tezayin tells us, which is somebody who is equal tzidkus and rishus. What we mean by that, we say, not that they're like there's a bean counter in the sky of how many mitzvahs and there's, because no one knows the mountain scaran of the mitzvahs. We said that in Parak Beis and others, but rather whatever the value was of the various mitzvahs and affairs, so somebody's considered a beinoni in that sense. And then he gets adjudicated, right, by both. Now the Gemara says that Rava, well, the Gersh is really Rabba, and it only makes sense to say that it's Rabba. Look at the side, you see it's Rabba. But it's a bit of a problem. to say Rava, as you'll see in a second. So we'll explain. So Amar Rabba, Kigoin Anu, did I skip? So what did we just say? So Bein Zev Zev Sheftin Shnem Yamali Min Evin Lashia Meshefte Nafshe. Fine. So now the Gemara says, Amar Rabba, Kigoin Amar Rabba, Kigoin Anu Beinanim. We, like for example, we, the Beinanim. So Amar Le Abaya Lo Shavik Mar Chayil Choberia. You haven't left anybody around to be normal if you're a Bainani. Now, in other words, in certain Svarim, where they talk about a Bainani, is somebody who's never sinned, but a Bainani is somebody who has a Yetzer or a Taiva. But that's what a Bainani is, then you can understand Rabbah and what Rabbah is saying. But Rabbah is suggesting that we are Bainani. And Abai says, if you're a Bainani, then there's no room left in the world for anyone to survive. Because if you're a Bainani and you're Rabbah, I remember Rabbah, the Gemara tells us in Bamitzia Pei Daled, right? Rabbah is the one who says the Yachran ibn Nigayim v'Oilas, and there's a machlekes in Shemayim, and they didn't know what it was. Just they had Tazrim Tzera, didn't know the halacha, but certain things in Nigayim and Oilas. So they said, let's get Rabbah. He's the Yachid in Nigayim and Oilas. Let's bring him up to heaven. That's the joke I like to make. It's like good news and bad news, right? The good news is you're the best in Nigayim and Oilas in the universe. Bad news is you're coming here tomorrow to tell us what the halacha is. Yeah. So anyhow, so what do we say? So Rabbah is I mean, literally how he died, right? He died because he was so good that the Yitzhar had to come get him. The Malacham Avos came to get him. We couldn't kill him because he was too busy learning. At Mamish, the Gemara says he's one of those people. The Gemara also in like Kan Chavches about Rav Chizda, the Gemara Shabbos. Right, Shabbos Lamed Beis about David HaMelech. A few people in Shabbos talked about the fact that the Malachim couldn't kill them because of the fact that they're too busy learning. Rabbah is one of those people. Right, the Gemara tells us he died at a relatively young age. Got him. Yeah, he makes a big noise, shakes some trees, and Rabbah stops learning for a minute. Okay, here's the Gemara. So what are we saying? We're up to. Abaya says that if you're a Bainani, then what's left for us? The world is only created for the 100% Rishon with 100% Tzaddikim. What does that even mean? It means that, as Rashi explains, the Rishon Gemurim, they only have this world. They don't get any Ilam Haba. They have to get everything here in this world, like Achav. And Tzaddikim Gemurim Olam Haba. Their whole life is Olam Haba. She'en Lam Olam Haba is a klum. So what do we mean by that? We say that the examples are Chanin ben Daisa and Achav. It says the Gemara. Amar Rava Leida Inish Benafshim Tzadik Gamahu Imlav. A person has to know if he's a Tzadik Gamar or not. Amar Rava Ibri Alma El Achav and Amri El Rav Chanin ben Daisa. So Rav says that the world is only created for Achav. And so a couple things you have to know just in the state of how this Gemara is working. When I learned the Gemara that Rava says the world is only created for Rishon or Tzaddik and Gemurim, I don't know that I have to compare this with Rav. Rashi is putting in what Rav says into Rava. Why Rashi feels need to do that? I think the answer is like this. Rashi is saying the world was only created for Rishon or Tzaddikim. When I read it without Rashi, I would think that it was talking about this world. We're not talking about the next world. Rav is talking about this world and the next one. He's talking about B'china Daisa and Achav. But from Rava's statement, I'm thinking about this world. It's only really created for real Rishon or real Tzaddikim. Why? Because real Rishon, they really enjoy this world. And real Tzaddikim really get out of this world exactly what they're supposed to get out of it. Each one. But for Beinan and the people like they don't get it, they're not getting it. So they're missing it. They're not fully engaging in this world. Okay, maybe. We'll put that on the side. That's how I would have read the Gemara. Rashi wants to bring Rav's memra that the world is only created for the Achavs. This world was only created for the Achavs, the next was only created for the B'chinim and Daisas. Rashi says that's what Rav is saying. I didn't know that. Okay? Number two. What do we mean when we say that this world is created for the Achavs? Because he has no next world. Right? Look at the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Yud Zayin. The Gemara tells us that a true Rishon, after this world, they're done. Right? They have Gehenim, 12 months, whatever. After that, their neshama, their ghost is gone. None left. Hold on, we have no. Wait, I'm sorry. We have no time. So we after that we're done. There's nothing left. So that and I'm and Daisa because the more in Tanis Klav Dal. What if we say Rabbi Chanin and Daisa? He has not. We actually had it more earlier in Zion. Rabbi Chanin and Daisa is Daila B'Kav Charuvim. Me'erev Shabbos, Lev Shabbos. He eats nothing. Right? What happened? His wife was once embarrassed. What we can't get into now. We're going to do Tanis, so we'll get there eventually. What happened? His wife Mamish was such penury. She wanted to have something, so they gave her the golden leg. And what happens is, you want to take away the heaven, send it back. So that's what I mean. No Anlam has that all. The basic to survive a little bit of carobs once a week. That's what they ate. That's it. Okay, continue the Gemara. Oh, and I have to just mention because we didn't say. Did you notice that there's something unbelievable here? Rabbah said that's Kigayan Ubeinanim. Rabbah says what? L'shavik mar, l'chai l'chol beri. No one can live if everybody's a Beinani. But then what does Rabbah say himself? Rabbah says, Lay the inish benafshim tzaddik gomer hu im lav. Every person has to know if he's a tzaddik gomer or not. What? Didn't Rabbah just say, Gun on Ubeinanim? And Rabbah says, if you're a Beinani, then there's nobody left alive. And then Rabbah says about himself, everybody has to know that we're a tzaddik or not a tzaddik. Everyone has to know. So what does that mean practically? Then Rabbah says we all have to look at ourselves as Beinanim. And Rabbah is saying, no, that's not correct. Yet what is the Gemara saying, Kedushin Amem? The Gemara says, what is Ram saying? Everyone has to look at themselves that way. The whole world has to look at themselves that way. So we're passing against Rabbah. We're going with Rabbah. So what's Rabbah disagreeing? I think the answer is fundamental. Moshe Rabbeinu knows he's the Anav Ma'ed Mikol Adam Asher Pnei Adam. The way you become the greatest Anav is because you're the greatest person. By definition, the greater an Anav you are, the greater person you are. Moshe Rabbeinu knows exactly who he is. He knows he's the Navi. He knows that. And he's precisely the smallest, and therefore he's the greatest. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't think himself as a Beinani relative to anybody else of the Jews, but he's not even a Beinani relative to their Rebbeinu Shalom. He's not even a zero. See the difference? So, in terms of oneself, to know who one is, 100%, you know if you're a tzaddik gomer or Rosh gomer, you have to know who you are. But relative to how you speak it out, relative to how you view yourself compared to the Rebbeinu Shalom, of course you have to know there's always way, way more that one is able to do. Continues the Gemara. It says b'chol nafshecha, why did it say b'chol ma'idach? So it teaches us the following: if a person has a body who he likes a lot more than his money, therefore it tells you that such a person should be focused on the spiritual stuff. If a person really loves the money more than the body, so he should make sure to be serving God even with all his money. Another drasha, that a person should serve Hashem with all his soul, even if they're going to take it. So I heard that they said Hashem Rabbi Miller. Miller suggested Neitlas Nafshecha is age. Is age. As you get older, that Hashem is Neitl your Nafshecha little by little, every day, a little older, a little slower. That's what it means. Even in your old age, you still have to serve Hashem. But maybe I'm not sure that that's the part of Pshat, but nevertheless, Rabbi Kiva is saying that if they're taking away your life, you have to still serve Hashem. The Romans, they decreed that Jews couldn't study Torah. But Papas ben Yehuda must Rabbi Kiva Makir Kilas Rabbi Kiva was teaching Torah in public. But the Torah of Amalei Rabbi Kiva Yatam Misyam ben Hamalchus. He said, "How could you do this?" Amalei Emshach Mashal Ma'ad Avdem. I'll tell you why. The Shor Shem Halachah Gav. Everyone knows the famous marshal about the fox that's going on the side of the river. Dog Shem Skatzim Makam Magen, and he sees the fish they're running to and fro. Amar Lehem Mipnei Ma'atem Barchim says the fox asked the fish, "Why are you swimming here and there?" Amar Lehem they Rash Shemavino Lena Bnei Adam because of the nets that everybody's coming to fish. Maybe you should come up on land and we should dwell together like buddies, the way we once did. The fish say to the fox, "Do you think they say about you you're smart, the smartest of the animals? You're a fool." Were we able to survive with the water and the way we can live? We're able to be alive, and nevertheless we're afraid. When we're going to come up on land, by definition we're going to die. We can't breathe. Of course we're not going to do that. Says Rabbi Kiva. When we are studying Torah, we have a chance, right? But if we're not studying, then we're dead. We're like the fish on the shore. So af anachnu she'achnu she'anu yeshiv v'etzim b'ter she'gaz b'kiyu chayecha v'erech emecha kach im anu ahochem u'mvat l'menu achas kam v'kam. If we stop learning, of course, it'll be a terrible situation for us. Amalei l'hayam u'mat mashet t'sula b'kiva chavshu beis asum. They invested b'kiva, they put him in jail. Tafsel Pavas ben Yehuda v'chavshu etzlei. And Pavas ben Yehuda was also in jail. Look in more psakim kufiyot test about kufiyot beis about the various halachas that Rabbi Kiva taught Rashbi while he was in jail. Amalei Papas. So Rabbi Kiva asked Papas, why are you in jail? I'm here for no good reason, but you were at least here for teaching Torah. When they took Rabbi Kiva to cause him to be killed, so Zman Kriyash Mahaya was the Zman of Kriyash Mahaya. Was the time of Kriyash Mahaya, and they were combing his flesh with the iron combs. Look at the end of it, the Gemara Menachos Chaftetz. By Mekabel of Amach Shemayim, Amalei Talmid of Rabbeinu Adkan. Why are you saying Shemana? Amalei Kol Yomai is Yisi Mistar Pasuk. Zeh B'chol Nafshcha. My whole life I've been thinking about this pasuk. What it means to give up your life when you're diving to Hashem. I feel neitlas neshmascha. Even if you are taking away your neshama, you should still be taking on for Shemayim. I said to myself, when am I going to be able to be Mekayim Zazach? Now that I have it, I'm not going to be Mekayim. And I'm Marach. He was Marach Be'echad, even though the Gemara we learned back. The Gemara told us in Gimel, you don't have to be Marach, right? Only you have to be Marach to be Mamach in the 6 directions, heaven and earth in 4 directions. And after that, you don't have to be, but we also learned that somebody who's Marach, the Gemara tells us, is going to be Marach in Shnoisav. Obviously, it didn't happen over here. Yes, the Paschal is not the Nisham went out with Echad. And the Amar Shrechem Kiv Sheyos Nishmas beEchad. Blessed you're Bekiva that your Nisham went out with Echad. Amar Chashos B'nei Kosh Baruch Hu Torah V'Zeskera. Right, same thing like they said in Menachos. And Hashem responds, Mimsim Yadcha Hashem Mimesim. Right, Hashem, you're killing them with your hands. You're not giving them life. Amalem Hashem responded to the angels. Chelkom B'Chaim. No, their portion is in the world to come. That's the Paschal. Amar Shrechem Kiv Shatam Mizum L'Chaim Mabah. I just want to point out as we finish right now that it's unbelievable. Look at the Gemara in Yomi Yotes. The Gemara is in Mamish, the same exact lashon. The Stamina Talmud talks about it. Stuki, who was going to do the Keteris of Nai B'Lefnim, exact same lashon. Kol Yom it's the Arti Apostle said this week's Parsha Acharei Mos. The Stuki does the Keteris the wrong way. Kol Yom and that tells you that the Stamina Talmud is trying to teach you a lesson that even if you have absolute intention to try to be close to the Rebbeinu Shalom, could be you're being totally off in that. All right, stop.